Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, usually Tuesday nights at around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, but fear not if you ever miss it, because it's always going to be uploaded as a YouTube video under the channel of Zenitsu, as well as on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. Please feel free to do the social media doobly-doo thing and leave that like, follow, rating, subscribe, whatever, review, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast. At least I feel like it would. Today, I am back with Jay Stewart, and we're going to be talking about a topic that has kind of like been on my mind, but not like brought up to the forefront, and that's kind of like highlighting the power creep of Digimon, and if the power creep that we had was even necessary to begin with. Because, like, I know power creep is like this big taboo thing that people kind of like, we like to scream and shout wolf about, but we don't understand if the power creep is even necessary or not, because there is necessary power creep and unnecessary power creep. And kind of like explaining that will be like part of the meat and potatoes of this discussion. But before that, we have just a couple of like news bits, I guess. So we do have more events coming up. So when it comes to regionals, the first season, good luck buying or getting any tickets if you are attempting to play in any of them. I think the majority of them are sold out, at least in the US. I don't know about the other regions, but almost all of the US stuff is sold out. So I think the upcoming one is Carta Magica at Niagara Falls. I know a couple of people from my locals, they're playing not in that one. I'm going to be playing in the store regional at the exact same time as Carta Magica. So, sucks that I'm not going to be there, but I'll be somewhere. But they're going to be playing Dragon Ball, Fusion World, more specifically. Then on May 31st, we have Play TCG. This is in Texas, so cool for that. Then on the 14th, we have Booster Box. This is an online one. Then that's June 14th. June 28th, we have Play TCG, another online. And then the July 12th is Top Cut. And that's the end of Season 1. Top Cut's going to be in Virginia? Yeah, Virginia. Then we did get the start of Season 2. So there might be more, but right now for North America, all that we have for Season 2 is Play TCG at Gen Con in August. And that's it. Europe's got a couple of events. TAC's got one. Latin Americans got one. They're still working out and fleshing out things, but like, it really doesn't seem like Digimon's big competitive scene is anywhere the size that it was last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like we had more events last year than this year.
Yeah, it kind of does feel like that they kind of have been going less and less of the big events, and they've been doing more and more store regionals, which, like, I'm glad that we have more store regionals, but I don't want the sacrifice of big, events and everything, because then the problem becomes everyone's going to sign up for the store regionals, and unfortunately not everyone can get in, especially when they have this weird cap of, oh, some stores are 64, some are 32. It just kind of awkward.
Yeah, the store regional that I'm going to is a cap of 32 players. We almost made cap last time, and we're probably going to be around the same numbers, if not already at cap this time around. I already got, like, one of the only reasons why I'm playing in it is because my buddy, he's hosting it. He works with the card shop, not for the card shop, with the card shop. He is running the event for them, and he already said one of my friends might not be able to even get in because he's already waitlisted, and it's just it's unfortunate. We have to see how the turnout actually is, but yeah, it is just awkward losing bigger events for store events. And I appreciate having the store events, but I also appreciate having the big events. Especially since we're doing two nationals. Because we have like the mid-year nationals and then the nationals that we all are used to, which is in like the winter spring time. Or I guess technically more the winter time because it usually takes place like January or February.
Yeah, I think it's like the first week of February.
Yeah, so it's really weird that they're trimming down on larger events, especially since the participation pricing is pretty decent. At least like Wave 1 seems way more worth it than Wave 2. Wave 1 has like some Altar rookie floodgates that are highly playable and desirable. And like I'm looking at the participation set for Wave 2. I'm not going to say any specific cards. You could always go to world.digimon.com. Not sponsored. If you want to look up the event information for yourself. It looks like the egg is that they're blurring is Baumon, but outside of that, the only like hyper generic staple card is probably Chaos Degradation, and that's about it. And it's seen less and less play as options have basically been power crept almost out of existence if they're not doing very specific types of things, which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
But
because like most of the time a deck will run an option card. It's usually because it's going to be a consistency tool at this point.
yeah, and then the finalist card changes Baumon to Lugumon, just like how in season one it was Pulsemon, it was BBmon and Pulsemon. So now they swapped it to Baumon and Lugumon. Well, the Lugumon's going to be the purple red one. So I don't know if it's going to be the latest one or if it's going to be like what BT 15 or 16 was when the other one came out.
I think it was BT16 if I remember correctly. Because if I remember correctly, BT15 it had like I think it had a level 5 and the level 6 for that. If I'm not mistaken, I could definitely be wrong on that.
Yeah, so I feel like the regional participation this time around is a little bit on the lacking side. The thing that's making it worthwhile is Event Pack 8. Event Pack 8 is probably the best event pack that we've had, and it's unfortunate that it's not going to be as widespread as it should because Event Pack 8 is cracked.
Yeah,
Um,
mostly because of the fact that it has like the Protoform, it has the Changemon. There was another card you mentioned earlier. I don't remember what though, but just those
uh,
two alone are really
yeah.
good to have.
So as far as Event Pack 8, if anyone needs an actual refresher, the hot cards is Quartzmon, Analog Youth, Rivals Barrage, Shadramon, and Protoform. All of those cards are like really decent cards to have. Metal Greymon from BT10, the Blue Flare one, and Dorimon are still also fantastic includes. Like Event Pack 8 is just easily the best event pack that we had. Um, just certified bangers all around. You can't go wrong with it. So, but yeah, it's this time around the participation stuff for the regional side of things is a little lacking, which is unfortunate. But as far as other like it's a slow news week outside of spoilers, which we don't cover because spoilers is a very weird topic because everyone gets like anyone who's anyone. Like if you're already following this, you probably already know of the spoilers, so us covering them is kind of like pointless. Which is why I initially stopped to begin with. But we do have Evolution Cups coming as a new store event, which I appreciate. I definitely, again, appreciate the fact that they're trying to push more store play because store play has been struggling for a lot of places for a while, and this is a good way to incentivize actual store play. The participation prize being the BT9X antibody, which is still a very good card, is nice. And then top four is Cool Boy from BT9. not BT4, but I think like BT9 or not BT4, BT21 or no,
Funny.
BT20. Yeah. Um I still think that BT9 Cool Boy is a good card. It's a very generic card, so versus the new one that needs to be in Royal Knight specifically. So I think that was a good call. I think the Omnimon X antibody that they're choosing for the winner's card, that's a big miss. I feel like they should have done the BT20 version versus the BT10 that we're getting. So it's just like the ironic thing is the most expensive card like on the secondary market right now is going to be the X antibody and the Cool Boy. So like the participation in top 4 is probably going to be worth more than the winner card, which is wild. I mean, it's fine. I'm okay with that. It's just wild to think that way.
Because it's not really like if I was to think of that Omnimon, for example, and everything, like the way I see it is this: only one person gets that out of probably what? How many participants could this thing have? Like
It's generally
16,
for
32?
16. Yeah, it's generally 16.
Yeah, so it's like for 16 players, like only one person gets it. So it's like you're not really spreading out that, like it's not handing out an Omnimon to every single person. So it's like there's still some kind of exclusivity to it, so to say. I mean, don't get me wrong, these arts on these 3 cards are fire. Like they are fantastic alt arts. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just unfortunate that the Omnimon from BT10 has unfortunately been power crept by the BT21 because even the BT21 it does almost a lot of other, like it's not doing the exact same thing as what the BT10 was doing, but there's other stuff that it's doing that's making it just as good, if not even more powerful than the BT10, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no reason to ever run BT10 when BT20 exists. Which I think is funny because it's like 10 main sets later, we get a new version of the card that's just unfathomably better. Um, but yeah, so and then as far as event data goes, because we're still trying to collect some of that, I don't have a lot of concrete new data to look at when it comes to meta stuff. Let me just pull it up really quickly because I am trying to like anytime I see it on Facebook or Eggman events, I am trying to like document as far as like what's actually been the winner, not winning or like top 4 or whatever, because that's getting really difficult to track because we're terrible at data collection. But um, as far as like what won this week's or like this past week's store regionals was Red Purple Imperial and Royal Knights. So we could add those into the repertoire of decks that have taken first place. And then in Italy, Gallantmon took first place, and then Magidramon took second in that event. Bandai, it's weird. Bandai only advertised first and second place. I think that's kind of awkward. Like, would it
Yeah,
kill him? Like, would it have killed them to do top 4 at the very least, or even top 8? Like, come on.
well, because it's not even that. It's like, yeah, it's nice to know how many or what won, but I would like to know the representation of every other deck as well.
Yeah, we're just never gonna get full data from Bandai ever, and Bandai doesn't want to give the full data, so because I do think, like, based on all of the stuff that we have right now, the meta seems to be in a very interesting spot. Because remember last week we had two Galactes, Ancient Garurumon, Gallantmon, Sakuya, Blue Green Imperial, and Demon Lords. So now if we're adding Red Purple Imperial, Royal Knights, and a second Gallant to the list, we have one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we have 8 decks that have currently taken first place that have been recorded. Um, which is wild considering how many decks are actually like somewhat viable this format, but like looking at a lot of like old data representation, it doesn't seem like people are playing anything more than like 10 decks, like 10, 16 decks at most.
Yeah, and I would think if Bandai wants to sell decks and everything, they would kind of help advertise like, "Hey, these are the decks that are winning." Because like imagine if they only show that that Royal Knights was winning and no other decks were winning. it's not going to help sell the set or anything. It's going like, or all these other cards getting bought or sought after. It's
Yeah,
like just seeing more data about what's topping kind of helps Bandai in the long run of like, oh, hey, there's so many decks from two, like BT21 that are topping. That's a set to buy, you know?
right, because right now, BT21 has proven to do almost nothing. Like, in the meta, in the grand scheme of things, BT21, outside of, like, literally Megidramon, which, again, has yet to take an actual first place that we have on record, um, the only impacts BT21 had was maybe on Gallant, and Gallant's not even using it. Because Galacti is last set. Or was Galacti this set? No, I think Galacti was this set because of Ragnarok Cannon. So Galacti is the best new deck to come out of BT21, and it's not even a new deck. Um, that's hilarious to think about. All the protagonists completely getting outshined by Galacti. Um, outside of Gallant, but I don't think Gallant's using the new tools because the new tools are more specifically Megidra focused, and Megidramon's a really good deck. It just hasn't gotten a first place. Keep in mind, that's what we're talking about is first place only. And that's what usually is being advertised more than like top 8, top 4, top 16, whatever, is just first place. But that's just a failure on our part for data collection, and we're just not organized to be able to get a better or more accurate picture. So yeah, that's the meta portion, and I guess now we should kind of go into the question of the week. So as always, feel free to type in a user, like a viewer submitted question down in the comments below, and we will scrub through all of the entries when it comes to the question of the week, and we will then answer them on the podcast. So, this question of the week is brought to you by Empire Youth. So, he is asking, which protections do you enjoy the most in the game? So their example is Machine Dramon has immunity, like Machine Dramon from EX1 has immunity from DP reduction. Craniumon has immunity from deletion. So like what are the protections that you enjoy the most?
So I think for me, it's going to be the source stripping protection because this is kind of a personal opinion of me and everything, but back at BT7, it kind of felt really bad when Blue Hybrids was able to strip all my sources because, like, I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Like, they could remove my bodies on the field and everything, and it's okay to me because I'm going to be trying to work on another body in the back and everything, in the raising or something like that. But the whole sources is like kind of what I put in all my time and effort into trying to build up. Like that's what I paid all that memory for. So losing my sources kind of makes it feel bad of why I paid so much memory. And a lot of time the sources or the inheritables are something I really need in order to be game winning or game deciding, so to say.
I yeah. I totally feel you. Which is why like a lot of people value D-Digivolve as probably the best removal type in the game right now because one, it's soft removal, so it's bypassing a lot of like native protections like on delete, so that way you're not triggering on delete effects, and like it's just the most efficient way of getting rid of a problem at this point in time, which is weird because I remember a time when D-Digivolve was so bad it was borderline unplayable, and now it's one of the best. Um, but as far as my personal favorite type of protection, I kind of like DP reduction protection because we don't have a whole lot of it. And there's a lot of abilities because of the natural power creep of the game to where DP reduction is still one of the better removal types because it can bypass, like, they just started fusing a lot of different removal types to just removing cards from the field, and now they're adding more protections against being removed from the field, but DP reduction doesn't remove them from the field, so like having protection against that feels it feels very good, even if it's only hating on one specific color more than anything. But it's just nice to have the variance in protections because I think there should be inherent flaws in protections because You don't want to have something omniprotective because then the card becomes toxic and overused and you can't get rid of it, and then it just becomes an absolute nightmare to deal with, as we have seen in the game's history before. So I feel like DP reduction fits a very good niche that can be very effective in the right environments, and I think that's what protection should be.
Yeah, because if like I know people like to hate on BT9 and everything for the X antibodies, but to me it's like the protections in that was kind of very basic and simple. Like if you subtract Alphamon, okay, like if I was to like focus on just uh Garurumon X antibody and the Greymon X antibody, one protect from bounce, one protect from battle, or yeah, just from battle. So it was like very basic protections. Like there were so many, like they're exposed to every other uh removals, so to say. But it's just like if you so happen to run into that one niche of, here's a protection option for you.
Yeah, because like I remember a time when options were actually supposedly playable more than just raw tempo tools or efficient removal tools that also do something else on top of that. Um, to where, like, yeah, we were running cards like Congo and we were running cards like Odin's Breath to be able to add additional protections that your Digimon wasn't covered against. So that way you had to use other tools to be able to build your Omni protective body. And the game, again, way back when the power state wasn't as high as it currently is, to where OTKs were existent, but they weren't as common or prevalent or the main strategy because the consistency wasn't exactly there to be able to piece it together. And now the consistency is really high to the point where most decks aren't even running 12 rookies anymore because there's no point on it. Most are running 11 at most because Ukamon exists as a filler rookie on top of the combination of training and memory boost that most decks are going to be running, or their own native version of those if they're like an alternative style of deck, to be able to just have something to hard play, search whatever, and then get yourself going with some additional benefits later. Like it's unfortunate on the cause and effect of how certain design aspects and mechanics of the game evolved and permanently changed the game, which is why a lot of like people like me, like Mario, like some others, I know we're the two more vocal ones, where it's just like we don't enjoy this current Digimon environment because a lot of the nuance that we liked is basically gone and removed from the game. That's the best way I could put it. I've been working on a script on a specific video for way longer than I should, but I'm having a very hard time script writing and vocalizing my thoughts about this because it is a very touchy subject that's near and dear to my heart. But going into the major topic, so thank you, Empire, for the question of the week. But going into the main topic, we're going to be talking about power creep. So obviously, one of the base examples that we're going to be talking about is the evolution of power creep. So how did we even get here? And like just a blatant showcase of like, yeah, this is very obviously trying to do the exact same thing but better. So Machinedramon from EX9 is the most current example of the most blatant power creep, and I haven't defined if it's like necessary power creep or if it's unnecessary power creep. So that's something we would have to take a look at, but if anyone's unfamiliar with Machinedramon from EX9, I guess I could pull up an example of it.
I got it up right now.
So, if anyone's unfamiliar with what it does, he has an assembly ability, which is basically Power Crept Digicross, where it's assembly 6, so you have to use 4 level 5 cyborg traded Digimon or 4 level cyborg traded Digimon with different names, and when it would be played, you get to place the specific cards from your trash underneath this card to reduce the play cost. So if you're familiar with Digicross, that mechanic reads you could use Digimon on your field, under your tamer in specific instances with the tamer's abilities, or from your hand to be able to Digicross to reduce the cost. So Digicross 6 would reduce it by 6. depending on like what it is in the cards. So essentially, like it's a very similar style mechanic. So what's making assembly better than Digicross is the fact that assembly can be used from the trash. That's the most blatant, obvious thing on what's making assembly insane. And like we're seeing it with Galactimon right now, where it's just like the level 5 being able to digicross from the trash is like ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. Because if we learned anything from Apocalymon's sins, if you like kill the level 5, all of the sources that it used to digicross with then go back into the trash ready to be reused, and the opponent has no interaction with the trash versus having interaction with the Digimon and Tamers that are on the field. Even though there's not a whole lot of Tamer interaction, there's still some to stop them from digicrossing. So assembly is just power crept digicross in my perspective. Then we have his All-Turns ability, where Machine Germon's All-Turns ability makes it so he basically can't leave the field as long as you're getting rid of 2 face-down inheritables or 2 cyborg-traded Digimon in its Digivolution source. So if anyone's familiar with the EX1 version, it had basically the same exact effect, except it was just from deletion. So that combined with can't be DP reduced generally meant it was going to be a very hard Digimon to remove, but it still had weaknesses. Where this has, I think, literally 1 weakness. No, it has 2, because this could be DP reduced. So this has 2 weaknesses where the old Mishijimon had a little bit more. Because this also will protect from battle. This will protect from just a lot of things. Yeah, it'll protect against Arrestramon, it'll protect against Chaos Degradation, like the alt removal types that were good because they were bypassing can't be deleted type abilities, can't be like bounced to the hand or deck or deleted. Those alternative removal types were good because it was a way to actually deal with those cards. And now we have strictly upgraded from those types of protections where it was more specific to this Digimon just doesn't leave the field, period. Which is absolutely crazy. Or this Digimon is just unaffected by your Digimon. And you're not running removal options because most decks can't afford to. So that just means you're not removing this Digimon, period. So that's kind of like an example on the evolution of power creep in a sense. Where it's just like we had something that was a little bit more fair imbalanced, had weaknesses, had drawbacks, to now it kind of just really doesn't, and its weaknesses are way more limited, and that's what's forcing us to use very hyper-specific tools or just play in very specific ways to try to get around it because otherwise we can't. Then we have to also take into account this new Machine Germon's play cost is 12 and his reduction is 6. The old Machine Germon's play cost was 12 and the reduction was 5. So this is technically costing 1 less. So it combos better because it's using less memory. And the old Machine Germon, because it didn't have Digicross, you had to hard play it, which meant you actually had to have the memory in order to do it. This one, like, you had to have the 12 memory. This one, you don't. So, like, there's a lot of, like, just, obviously it's an EX1 card versus an EX9 card. So, like, take that for what you will. But it shows a similarly designed card and the vast amount of power creep to where it needs to have these specific types of abilities to be playable. And that's not even taking into consideration if this is needed or not. Because that's where the big crux of the argument is if this was a needed power creep, then it was just a natural evolution of where the game is going to go. And if it was not needed, then it's just unnecessary power spiking that is going to have ramifications for the rest of the game as long as that card exists in the capacity that it does.
Yeah, I think another important thing to mention is the fact that this Machine Dramon, it can actually work with any of the main deck cores of EX9. Because it says, because it literally has that black text box of Digivolve on top of a level 5 with that DM trait for a cost of 3. So literally every other, like, It doesn't matter if it's version 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. They could run the Machine Dramon from it.
Yeah, and like this is just a very obvious example of power creep because we've had subtle power creep before throughout the game's history to where it was just a natural evolution. And then we've had examples where no, this was very much a power spike that was not needed at all. And those are the more damaging things. Like, power creep is always going to be a thing in any TCG. It's just how egregious it is to how much damage this card is going to do to the game's overall design.
Yeah, I think another important thing too to mention, also while I'm thinking about it, is the fact of already the cards that exist out there for Machine Dramon. Like, take for example the Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon. Like this option card from when was this? From BT9 that gives your Machine Dramon Rush and Blitz now. Uh, this is going to obviously get abused with this new Machine Dramon as well, of course.
Yeah, and then there's Ultimate Connection, and there's like uh, another delay based option that lets you reduce the play cost of your level 6, and then you get a hard play it, and then you can assemble to make it even less. And the fact that the new Machine Dramon also can steal the on play abilities of whatever's gonna go underneath him is like partially why you get cards like BT7 Metal Greymon getting bought out, because that card now can be used its on play effect to either play a tamer for free or just gain 2 memory. So it makes the card even more memory efficient. So between all of the different cost reductions on top of his own base cost reduction, there's a world where we're probably not even paying memory for this card. So we went from a card that supposedly was costing 12, his initial base design made it so he costs 7, to now he costs 6, to now with all of the additional discounts that we're probably going to be playing with it in setup cards, to now he's not costing anything at all. That's crazy. Like, part of what made the old Machine Dramon balanced was the fact that you were giving away memory over to the opponent. And that's partially true to today. Like, you still have to give the opponent memory to play the card unless you're playing like some really janky outside left field tech like the Chimeramon stuff people were trying to force in that just didn't work because Chimeramon wasn't a cyborg. So like they were trying to find a ways to circumvent it and couldn't find a successful way, and now it's just built in. Now you just don't pay for a level 6 Digimon that you're hard playing with a slew of different keywords that also isn't going to get removed. Like, you could very obviously see, like, the direction this kind of card is, like, stating for where the game currently is. So, if I had to break, like, the power creep down, I would say, like, by block, I would say that obviously Block 0 was the foundation of the game. They were just figuring out what was going on, what was starting. Block 1 was probably the identity of the game starting to form. So, like, between Block 1 or 0 and Block 1, once we hit Block 1 was when we were really developing that chicken style gameplay because the game was getting faster and cards were becoming more and more explosive. And then we basically held on to that chicken style gameplay through, for the most part, BT. I want to say 14. Like, the game played relatively similar all the way through BT 14, where it's just like.
No,
I mean, we had DNA and hybrids to try to like mix things up, but hybrids was toxic for 2 sets, and then hybrids became like this dormant thing and barely came back outside of like red hybrids in BT12. Because like yes, BT7 we had blue and yellow all the way through BT9, and then they disappeared, and then red hybrids came back in BT12 and was like just okay because everything else was kind of doing just as powerful, if not more powerful and more faster things.
yeah, I definitely think BT14 was starting to hint at like a lot of the major power creep because I mean, it's a fine example is Fenry Lugomon. obviously like just cheating out like the game's core mechanic of, hey, the memory's passed over. It's supposed to be my turn. Oh no, not according to this guy's effect. So it's like I feel like that's definitely when we saw it really kind of start. But I think EX5, and literally I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube of like a bunch of people rating like Digimon sets and everything of where they are like based on a tier system, and every single person says EX5 is the one that kind of has changed the game forever because we're still dealing with like a lot of the cards from it. Like we're still dealing with the Cerberus package. We're still dealing with the Leviamon. We're still dealing with the whole Dusk and Dawn cards even being a threat like at any given moment. Like I mean, obviously Dusk and Dawn's not too relevant right now, but there's nothing out there saying that it's not going to be, especially since there's a store tournament where there's a promo Ace Apollomon for Dusk and Dawn now.
Yeah, so now they get an in archetype ace card that also helps them DNA. Like, it's trying to put the deck back into Grace Nova's hands because we've strayed so far from Grace Nova. It's like very comedically sad on how awful and like how awfully designed EX5 as an entire set was. Um, but yeah, so like I I think EX5 definitely was like the one of the biggest power spikes because even though Fenry Lugamon was doing some incredibly strong things, he wasn't like he wasn't overly oppressive to the point where like Shine and Mirage kind of were in BT13. But even then, they weren't overly oppressive. They were just the best of the best. There was still plenty of other stuff playable, and Fenry Lugamon didn't feel like a power spike comparatively to some of the better decks that were being played at that time. What really was the big design change, because if you like look at the overall designs of like just the ABCs, I'll say, of the game, like your general 1, 2, 3s, your bread and butters, whatever you want to label it, like how you perceive and play the game, it was BT14 that changed that because of the training cards. And the design philosophy that they had going into the new ways rookies were being designed. So it wasn't until I think it was EX4 where we saw the first rookie where it had a start of main effect, and that was Shine's Agumon. Like it was a red yellow Agumon where it's just like at the start of your main, if you have a tamer, gain a memory, and then its inheritable ability is like when you suspend a tamer, draw a card. So it was a very good card, and it was partially what helped Marcus based decks do as well as they did, was because that was the first time that design philosophy was even introduced, and it was having access at something nothing else in the entire game was doing. Granted, it couldn't fully capitalize on it, but that doesn't stop it from being a very powerful tool that nothing else was doing. So in comes BT14, and now we start seeing a whole bunch of extra rookies with start of main do something. And this was their solution to incentivize us from raising out rookies because, again, we were playing chicken for probably about 1.5, 2 years, to where you really don't want to raise out your Digimon and commit as little to the board as possible and kind of like bait out the opponents. So you would have to play a rookie. Most of the time it was like a searcher rookie. And then you slowly build both stacks on the field until the stack you had on the field was that threatening to where it forced the opponent to move out. And then you had the rookie in raising that was evolved to then move out and then punish them for it. So it was a very interesting back and forth that is borderline removed because now we moved into a more combo-centric style gameplay.
Yeah, it's starting to become more and more solitaire, so to say, even as well. Because, like, take for example the sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. Like, what Mirage was eventually starting to turn into and everything was like, oh, I'm just gonna set up to where the moment you draw a card, you lose a turn, it comes back to me, and practically you're not going to be able to play the game. And then even if you look at Shine Greymon Ruin mode, there was so many decks out there that were trying to abuse it, do like a looped kind of shenanigans that would just like stop your opponent from just playing the game in general as well and everything. And even back in BT15, Apocalypse as well was kind of even doing that, like where it's just, oh, I'm gonna put all this protection so you can't interact with me. And by the way, I'm gonna just keep milling you out every single time.
Yeah, and then if you kill Apocalypse, all of the stuff that was used to play Apocalypse goes into the trash. So then they just play a new Apocalypse and start the whole thing all over again. Like that, it was a complete and utter design failure. And did nothing. Like that's an example of unhealthy power creep because Apocalypse, when played correctly, costs you 3 memory to play. Very efficient for a level 7 Digimon you're playing on the field with protection, with other keywords, and milling the opponent out so you don't even actually have to engage in any kind of combat. You just sit there, tell the opponent, nope, this card's not leaving. He's just going to mill you out. Oh, next turn, you killed him? Cool, I'll just play another one. But yeah, so it wasn't until like BT14 when we started to see this more like combo centric gameplay because of the start of main abilities put on to rookies like Patamon as an example, where it's just like, yeah, you move it out and then he digivolves for free. Then that's when you use like TK or Scramble to then digivolve again for like borderline next to nothing. And then that allows you to do something else. And next thing you know, you pay maybe 1 or 2 memory for a mega level Digimon through all of this evolution. And a lot of decks had to like figure out ways to be able to keep up with that. And then on top of that, because now we also had the combination of memory boosts and training cards, it heavily incentivized us not to run any other options but those types of cards because they were searching cards out of our deck. So we could afford to run less Digimon on top of the fact that they gave a refund. So you just gain value later after you searched out the cards that you were looking for to set up. So then with enough of those options on the field, you basically digivolve for like 1 or 2 or nothing, depending on the stack, all the way up into a mega level Digimon. And that's when things started to break, like Mirage, because the speed and tempo of the game was dramatically increased because of the combination of those cards. It was more so the training cards' fault than memory boosts, because if anyone wants to go back and look at like BT13 and even like BT12 or 11 deck lists, we were usually running 2 memory boosts still. Only 2. Like, we were on 14 rookies, 2 memory boosts. And then we still had room for, like, tech options and other things to really spruce up what the deck was doing and capable of. And now for running alternative options, it's most likely, like, delay traps is what I'll just call them. Where it's like, oh, yeah, I'm using this to gain some inherent advantage on my turn, and then on the opponent's turn, it allows them to not really interact with me in a meaningful way. And if they do, then it's only going to be for their detriment. Like, it's not necessarily the greatest style of design when it comes to options. And again, most decks aren't running them at that high of a quantity because they have to run the consistency tools to be able to keep up with the rest of the game. Because otherwise, they're just going to get completely ran over. And like,
yeah,
it's this speed shift that made cards like Mirage borderline acceptable in one format and now unacceptable now, because when it was designed, it was perfectly fine. It wasn't expected. You weren't expected to digivolve for 0 all the way up into that card and then gain memory for digivolving and start taxing the opponent and locking them out of the game. Same thing with like Hammer Spark, Gravity Crush, all these 0-costed options. They were fine before because the game was way slower, so we needed those tools to catch up, and now they're borderline unacceptable because 1 memory is too much memory.
Yeah, I will say, like, I think like one of the biggest I want to say contenders, like the biggest offenders of power creep has probably got to be Magnamon X anybody from BT16, because obviously, like, you know, when they designed it, it clearly was more meant to be like part of the armor deck and everything. It wasn't supposed to be able to trigger its effects so fast or so cheaply, so to say. But like the fact that they came out with like, oh hey, here's this generic Patamon that allows you to evo into any vaccine. Doesn't have to be like generic angels or anything like that. It's just any vaccine attribute. And keep in mind, Digimon have one of four, attributes: virus, data, vaccine, or unknown, or free, I guess, so to say. So it's like literally you just could get like 25% of the Digimon out there are vaccines, so to say, give or take. And the fact that obviously Patamon was able to be easily abused, like the what is it, the Rapamon Gold armor from BT8, I think that's what it was, like a really old card that didn't really see much play at all when it first came out. And the fact that Bandai just kind of had that small oversight kind of caused a big problem, so to say.
I mean, that's accidental power creep. Like, I don't think that was like a malicious. I think like what they did with Apocalypse, that was more oversight that became malicious. I think what they did with Magnamon from BT16, that was just blatant maliciousness. Like, that was a card, they knew what they were doing. They knew what that card would do. There wasn't that much room for like vague interpretation because it was very for the most part cleanly worded. So they fully were aware of the power level of that card being so much higher than everything else in the entire game. Like, that's what I would define as like the unhealthy power creep, the unnecessary power creep. Apocalypse was that, but it was a complete and utter design oversight. And like, it still shows the failings of the game and trash based interactions, and the fact that we still barely have anything to actually interact with the opponent's trash in a meaningful way to disrupt that type of gameplay, which is why digicrossing from the trash or using anything from the trash is some of the best things that you could do in Digimon, because you're limiting the amount of interaction that you have with the opponent. And going back to the question of the week with removal, we saw removal change in a lot of different ways to where it's just like, okay, it has this one basic level of protection to, okay, now it has a couple of levels of protection where it's just like, oh yeah, this Digimon can't be deleted. Cool. A couple sets later, this Digimon can't be deleted or returned to the hand or deck. Cool. This Digimon can't be removed from the field. A little excessive. And now we have, like, this Digimon just can't be affected by abilities at all. Like, this card just is not affected by anything. And I'm just like, that's a little excessive. And it's that escalation of protection that is also warping how we're perceiving and playing the game, because we base a lot of what's playable in terms of removal tech on the protections that Digimon have. So it's just like, oh, Gaia Force is bad because the opponent's Digimon can't be deleted. Well, that still doesn't stop us from running Gaia Force, because there's other Digimon that don't necessarily have that. And the more widespread protection becomes, the less relevant that card type becomes. So, like, that's why Biting Crush is such a coveted option, because at the very worst, even if you're not deleting the Digimon, which most of the time you are, even with protections, because you're using the card early enough to try to stop them, you're still getting the additional benefit of the delay-based part of that option. And that's why, like, Raging Serpentine in Medusamon is so good, is because it's following that same type of design pattern, and it's one of the few removal cards that's actually being ran because it has a delay ability slapped on top of it. Like, and I think that's the big oversight when it comes to options and its overall power creep, is the fact that if it doesn't have a delay-based ability, it's borderline worthless. Or if it's not putting itself into security to then gain a secondary ability, it's borderline worthless. Like, it's becoming really sad. And it, like, the option has to be broken in the context of where the game currently is in order to see play if it's not meeting that criteria. Like the Jack Raids, like the Hammer Sparks, Just free
Like
instant
Ragnarok
memory.
Cannon.
Yeah, like just free instant value.
Yeah, no, and it's a shame because there's like obviously I think there has been a shift in the game where the option card should have like a secondary effect of something, so to say. But the fact that it's very few and limited is like kind of what's not helping the game right now, I think, so to say. Because it like if there was like a bunch more option cards, I think that we're doing what Ragnarok. Well, I shouldn't say what Ragnarok's doing, but like just the idea of like, hey, if X doesn't happen, then you get to do this instead, kind of situation. The fact that there's not that many, it's like what's kind of causing us to not really play a lot of good options, I guess, so to say. And obviously, if there was more of cards like that, I think we would be running more of these removal options, unfortunately. But Bandai hasn't caught the meta up with that, so to say. Like, we just now finally got more option cards that have secondary effects in BT21, like you said, with the Medusumon and the Ragnarok Cannon. But we need more.
Well, so it's unfortunate because like going back to the power creep discussion, that's the unfortunate reality is the game has been warped to such a degree because of the higher levels of protection to where cards need to start doing that type of stuff. It's like Fireball. Like Fireball in the earlier ages was actually a really good card because it basically had two modes. And I think that was like a really well designed card because, oh, you could use this to delete something, or if there's nothing to delete, then it just draws you cards. It's just inherent upside all around. And I feel like the delay based options are basically that on steroids. Like they didn't need to exist the way that they do. So like you could have kind of like what Gallantmon was doing, where it's just like the new promo Gallantmon, where it's like I either delete a Digimon or recover one. Like granted that's on play of a body that plays itself for free, so not necessarily the best example, but it's the type of design that they should have explored and experimented with before just jumping into delay hell that we're seeing. Because again, delayed based cards we have almost zero interaction for. We have two whole cards in the entire game that do anything with delayed options, and it sucks.
Three.
Three? What's the third one?
Yeah. It's the stupid, really bad. Well, the three are this: you have the Lucimon option card, you have the Cyberdramon Ace, but you also have like this really stupid. I can't think. It's like from EX5 or not EX5, BT5. It's the Omnimon all sort delete where it just deletes everything on the field for 10 cost, but
It doesn't delete
that's
options.
no, it removes everything on the field for both players. Like it does a
Uh,
whole.
I don't think that actually removes options, like delayed options.
It should. I thought there was like a. I thought that was a ruling on that, but
Yeah, it's all delete.
yeah, I'll delete.
I'm 90% sure that doesn't delete options.
But either way, though, it's like it's a real like if it does or if it does delete options, it's a really old card that's like way too like if you have because in order to activate it, you got to have an Omnimon on the field, and at that point, you should already be winning the game. So, like, it's a really bad option card, so to say, that would never see the light of play just for option removal.
Yeah, it's delete all Digimon and Tamers.
So why the hell did someone say it does? Okay,
No, the
that's my
card
bad then on that.
specifically this card specifically reads. I don't know what my mouth was trying to do there. But it specifically states that you're going to delete all Digimon and Tamers and trash all Digivolution cards of. Oh, that's just the general thing where the people needed the explanation on what happens to the inheritables. So yes, it just deletes Digimon and Tamers.
Okay, that's my bad then. I don't know why I was thinking it did, but
Yeah, no, it's basically Justimon and the one Lucimon option that interacts with delayed based options. But again, that's another uninteractive element that needs to have some interaction because otherwise the power levels of those types of cards is just going to escalate with no real solution to them. I'm not saying like we need to design silver bullets, because thinking about it, like looking objectively, all of the problems Digimon has had in its development and all of the bans and restrictions, they have never once actually done a silver bullet. Like a true silver bullet. Like we have like pseudo silver bullets, but let's be real, half of them aren't very effective because they're archetype locked to bad cards or bad archetypes. So we haven't really had a true silver bullet that actually solves the problem with a very specific mechanic.
Just out of curiosity, what do you mean by silver bullets?
So, you know how the only thing that supposedly kills werewolves is silver, and so you need to shoot it with a silver bullet? So it's like this thing is borderline indestructible, unkillable, uninteractable, unanything except for this one very specific thing. So it's basically what some people call solution selling. So they'll introduce a problem that the game is literally not equipped to handle, and then they will sell you in the next set the solution to said problem. So Digimon
okay, kind of like how Imperialmon Ace was.
Yes.
Paladin mode.
So Imperial Dramon Ace Paladin mode was supposed to be the silver bullet to Apocalypse. Because he was the card, like everything about what that card does screams anti-Apocalypse. Returning a level 7 white Digimon to gain 3 memory. Check. Removing all cards from trash to the bottom of the deck. Check. It basically just, you get up into it, you can easily hard counter Apocalypse. And even on the inverse side, if you're against Apocalypse and you're in fear of milling out, well, I'll just return my own trash to the deck to be able to get all of the benefits. Like, it, so that was a good example of, like, the most silver bullety thing that we got, but because Bandai had to get rid of the problem before the silver bullet actually can prove to be a silver bullet, it just turned Paladin Mode Ace into a generically good card. When it was supposed to just straight up kill Apocalypse. And, like, it's the only real influential trash hate that we kind of have in the game. And it's a shame because it's attached to a level 7 body, so it's still somewhat hard to get up. And then because of the level of power creep that we had with purple decks, they used to be able to have the cards that they needed slowly accumulate in their trash, and they have to hope and pray to get the card they need set up into the trash. And now they just do it for free incidentally. Like, look at the Cerberus package. It's like, oh, I discard a rookie to then revive the same rookie I discarded. I discard this card to gain this when discarding ability to then do something else. Like, it's all built into itself to where there is no window of opportunity for the opponent to actually interact to stop them from doing their thing. Even if they have a Paladin Mode Ace, just as an example. So, like, that's kind of the types of interactions that have become synonymous with where the current development of Digimon has became. And, like, the state of the game people find themselves in. And I'm not necessarily saying this is, like, a bad thing. Some people enjoy that high level of, like, combo play to where the opponent really doesn't have any meaningful ways to interact, which is why a card like Biting Crush is so coveted, because it actually does have a way to stop the opponent on the opponent's turn from doing their full thing. That's why floodgates are super important, is because you need to try to slow the opponent down, otherwise they're just going to steamroll you. Whether it's on a level 3 or a level 6 or even a level 7, it doesn't matter. You have to try to get up into a floodgate to stop the opponent from playing the game, and by that point, they're so gimped that they just actually can't play the game. Like, it's crazy. It's wild. But, yeah, so Digimon, I know we kind of got a little off track, but Digimon hasn't really introduced that many silver bullets. So, like, Pokemon has had way more silver bullet, like, Pokemon and Magic have had way more silver bullets printed than Digimon, which I think is, like, fine. Digimon Silver Bullets literally comes from power creeping the next set to try to sell it and make it more impactful than the last. And like I feel like the new designer, ever since she took over, since like the Apocalypse debacle, probably at least a year and a half ago now at this point.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, she has been doing a pretty okay job where only one, like realistically, only one, maybe two new decks from a single set is like competitively viable, and then the rest of it is garbage. And it's not like it's garbage, it's just not competitively viable. They're still strong decks. It's just, can they OTK the
Unfortunately,
opponent?
she has to.
Yeah, it's like, can they OTK the opponent? Can they lock the opponent out of the game? Can they be so uninteractable that you literally just can't do anything to stop or do anything about them? Like those are generally the three, like the trifecta of what Digimon decks need in order to be competitively viable, and you need to generally try to do two or more of those things in order to actually have a semblance of success. And most decks aren't, and most decks are too fair. And like you could take some of the newer decks and like take Applimon as an example. Like Applimon, if you would have released Applimon in like BT13, it would have been fine. It would have been competitive. It would have been good. Would it have been the best deck? No. But would it have been a good inclusion into that format? Probably.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah, it's not so power spiked to where like a BT13 deck as BT13 can't compete with it. Like, and I think that's like the true testament of like how you could like test power creep is take a newer deck, pair it up against an older deck, and see how well it does. If it completely bodies and stomps it 100 times out of like 100, then yeah, there's very obvious power creep and something is, I don't want to say wrong. It's just like it's just very obvious. But if you take like a BT13 deck versus something that's being printed now, like a lot of the Liberator decks, and it's a fair game, that's good design because I find BT13 to be one of the better formats in the game in terms of like the power level.
Yeah, because I think the other thing too is like obviously like Liberators is like kind of I don't know how you feel about it, but to me like with the Liberator decks and everything, even every single one they've came out for, they've always felt like it's been like a soft reboot of the game of like, hey, this is the bar we want to set, but unfortunately players are just taking the like either some cards or that are getting abused by a bunch of older cards. Like literally it's like I think the problem is like between BT13 and EX7 is like there's a lot of problematic cards from between those two sets that's not really allowing a lot of room, so to say, for either creativity or even just because like I can't even say really it's like I don't know how you like you're defining power creep and everything, but like obviously like the idea is like to me is like as the game goes on, the scaling of the power should also be going up. But a lot of the newer decks, give or takes, some newer decks, they kind of haven't been able to keep up because there's a lot of core cards between BT13 and EX7 that are just too generically good for what they do, in my opinion.
That's a fair assessment. That's a very fair assessment. Like the way I define power creep is like the more traditional sense where it's just like does the new thing trump the old thing? And like most of the time in Digimon's history, the answer was yes. It's still always yes, which is why we don't need a rotation is because power creep rotates it naturally for us. So it's wild to see some like Bandai for One Piece trying rotation, but I think like they just have more inherent design mistakes that they don't want to acknowledge. Like the whole leader system, like that could be really skewed and screwed up. And it has been, but that's their game. That's One Piece, and this is Digimon, and we have our own different sets of issues where it's just like decks. So like part of what's keeping I'm just going to be picking on Atmon because I've been playing a decent amount of it on the sim. What's keeping Atmon back is the fact that it doesn't have really good tempo tools. So like its native tempo is pretty decent. It's above average compared to your BT13 deck, where it goes into the idea concept of hidden costs. So it's just like, okay, we'll take Globemon as an example. It digivolves for 4. Are you really digivolving for 4? No. The intended way they want you to use is to app link, which costs, I think, 2 or 3. So it's a hidden cost on, like, the app link cost is supposed to actually be the digivolution cost if you're using the app fuse mechanic. So like that's what I mean by hidden costs. Is like this card reasonably costs this. This is the printed cost, but that's not what you're actually doing with it. So I think like with the way the power creep has gone, we've had lots of egregious hidden costs, and Atmon, as an example, its hidden cost isn't so egregiously stupid to where it's just playing everything for free or a good portion of its stuff for free, and it still has to pay for things, which makes it fair and balanced in comparison. Which I think like is pretty skewed and messed up if like, oh, this card a level 5 evoing for 1 is average at this point. That's average. When if we look at Jet Sylphimon's crimes, that was too good. Like that's why Jet Sylphimon was part of the ban and restriction list, was because evoing into a level 5 to go into a fast level 6 was too good. So like my thing with the ban and restriction list and why I'm like kind of like weary on a lot of their decisions is like, what is your current standard on what it should be allowed? So like, is evoing into a level 4 for 0 healthy for the game? Probably not. Is evoing into a level 5 for 1 healthy for the game? You already said it wasn't, so why is everything doing that anyway? Like, it's those small things where you could use the ban and restriction list as like a barometer to see like, oh, this wasn't acceptable, but this very clearly more powerful thing is. Like, I don't get it. I'm not like championing for anything to come off the ban and restriction list. Like, this is why people are championing for things to come off the ban and restriction list, is because the game is in such a higher power state where it probably is okay for it to come back, even if it is harmful for the overall design space of the game.
Yeah, it's like practically people are just arguing like, well, it's clearly obvious that the design intention or how the gameplay should go has clearly shifted now, according to what Bandai has done with the recent reveals.
Right, like why is Gravity Crush left at 4 of when all of the other zero cost options that gain 1 to 2 or more memory um at 1? Like all of them are at 1 except for the really bad ones in green and black. I'm
Black.
talking about like Tropical Storm or Tropical Venom and Parabolic Junk. It's like they need those options. Yes, they're zero cost options. Yes, they could gain tempo, but they need something to interact with in order for you to gain the instant tempo.
Or even
Which
the
is
junk one.
which is the hidden cost of the card. You need something to interact with. All of the other options, zero cost options, don't. At least like that were released in that time period. It's just like that's why Megidramon is popping off as hard as it is because it just lines up a turn where it's just like, and here is a Gravity Crush, here's a Gravity Crush, here's a Jack Raid. Now I've gained 6-7 memory to be able to use my Rush Guilmon after breaking 3 of the opponent's security to then be able to play out more Rush bodies while you don't have anything to do. Because you can't stop this because I'm doing all of this by turn 2 or 3. Like, it's moments like that where it's just like, what are we actually doing here? So, like I said, I'm gonna be writing a script. I've been writing a script on my overall thought processes, but this is kind of like a snippet or portion of like my thought process going into writing that script. I'm just really bad at script writing, so like it's very difficult for me to articulate my feelings in a more, I guess, professional manner. It's just easier for me to talk about them, but most people don't like me talking. So, but yeah, like, I don't know. I think the power creep in the game has gone a little too rampant for a little too wrong, and I think like EX5 definitely damaged the game irreparably. Um, BT, like, if I had to take a point, like a stare at the game and point where power creep was, um, BT7 really hurt the game. BT9 hurt the game. I would probably say after that,
Nothing else really kind of
yeah, I think
worked.
it's a pretty okay all the way up until like outside of promos here or there, but promos have always been a problem with Digimon. I would say BT7, BT9 were the earliest like forms of like unhealthy power creep, followed by probably EX5 and like EX5 through BT17 I think were borderline mistakes. I think like there's some dumb things in BT18, but I don't think the set as a whole was like massively power creeping the game like compared to the other sets. So I think like
Yeah,
EX5 really broke the camel's back, and then they just had to like dance around EX5's power level, which was so high for the next couple of sets, and then they just, for whatever reason, come BT17 or like whatever, they just decided to continue with that same level of power escalation. Like they could have stopped it, but they just didn't.
so I think it's kind of depends on. So I'm trying to think, because when the new director or I, the English person kind of, there was like something about it, like a whole new team was kind of uh change or something. I think around BT14's release or something like that, if I remember correctly.
No, so the new director came in post nationals of 2024, or not 2024, 2023, which was when we just finished up EX5, and the old director probably left or working at a different division, mostly because of the damage that EX5 caused.
Well, I was gonna say I swear there was like something about like a design team change after BT14's release, if I remember correctly. I thought, but I could be wrong on that. But
I that this would be news to me. Like I could understand a design mentality change after like at BT14. Because if you look at Block 2 and Block 1, they have a very similar feel, like game feel, because how we approached the game was the same for those 2 years. We had to change our perception and opinion all of Block Zero because they were still building the foundations. But after hybrids and DNAs came out, we kind of just had a good understanding on how we're playing the game. And then it wasn't until BT14 when the training cards came in that really started to shake and rock that foundation. And then now it's like completely different. Like the game is legitimately completely different.
yeah, like thought there was like something about like if I remember reading correctly, like there was like a weird design team change after BT14 and like when the new director came in and everything, like there was already like so many sets that were probably greenlight or card designs that were probably greenlit to go kind of things. So it's like I'm not trying to blame her for it because I think it was like right around EX7 is when maybe she started to get to call the shots on like what got approved or what didn't. If
Yeah,
I
she
had to
she
take,
was in charge of like Liberator style design. Like everything that started with Liberator was like partially her team's work. So like the
yeah,
old
and
director, that's why like EX5 all the way through BT17 was just completely fucked. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It was completely fucked. The game was awful. And I'm not saying the game got any better because of Liberators. It just got more interesting because it's very clear that she knows, or like her team knows how to design well balanced cards into one another. That's literally most of what Liberator decks are. Like, you look at the top results, and almost none of them are Liberator decks. And that's because the Liberator decks aren't trying to power creep the game. Like, they're just trying to
No,
exist inside of the game. And I think that's good. That's fine.
yeah, I think like the biggest power creep thing that Liberators has done is like, oh, you have like you could play another tamer if you have one or less. Because before, the tamer, like being able to play the tamer for free, required you not to have the tamer to exist to begin with, kind of thing. I think that was the only major power creep thing Liberators was trying to do, but clearly it's not enough for Liberators to compete.
Well, Liberators has like they added a new rookie style in Liberators to where it's just like, yeah, if I'm digivolving into the proper type, then I get a reduced cost of the digivolution by 1, which I think is a fantastic idea because that de-incentivizes the use of the training cards so quickly. But then you still run into the issue where, okay, now that I digivolved into my level 4 instead of for 0 for 1, now that just lets me save my training card to use on the level 5 or level 6. So it didn't exactly fix the problem per se. It was a good attempt, but like it's fine. Like, a lot of the Liberator decks are well designed and well balanced, and like that's what gave me hope that the game could be in a good spot. And then there's just some egregious amounts of power creep in one specific deck per set that's like head scratching. It's like BT18, it was purple hybrids. It's like, why the fuck does purple hybrids kill itself, replay the tamer, and grab back all of the stuff that it just lost? Like, it was basically like, oh, let me copy your homework, Ancient Greymon, Ancient Garurumon from BT17, except let me do it better. So, like, because then it's not giving the opponent a body to interact with. That was what made hybrids so good, was the fact that they could aggress, kill themselves, reset, lose nothing, and be able to do that rinse and repeat until the game is over, pretty much. And the opponent has zero opportunity to really interact with them in a meaningful way. And then BT19, it was Lord Knight. Even though we realized Lord Knight was strong, it just wasn't as good as Levia. Like, it was good tech card, but it wasn't great. So like BT19 mostly was kind of just a dead set outside of that. Then we had, what came after that? EX7 was before that. So that would be EX8.
Eight?
Yeah,
Yeah, with
EX8
had the
Dynamon.
medieval and the
Yeah,
Galamon.
yeah, Medieval Gallantmon was just a fucked card. Like, that card was just awful, terrible design. I would never have wanted to print that because it kills complete strategies, and that's the sign of a bad card design, is if this card kills complete strategies. It took to BT20 for Crosshearts to be able to get a card to be able to at least combat what the oppressive nature Medieval Gallantmon was exuding on the deck, keeping it from even being viable. Um, and now Crosshearts has to play a specific way, otherwise they just can't beat Medieval Gallantmon at all as a singular card. But Dynamon was probably the most powerful thing that came out of that set. It wasn't like super. Oh, well, no, technically it was Gallantmon. Gallantmon's updates were really impactful. Um, but yeah, so like each set has like one or two decks that are like above and beyond stronger than everything else, and they're the ones that are staying inside of the meta. And new decks that are coming out, if they can't compete with those like absolutely power spiked to hell older decks from the last couple of sets, you might as well not even pick them up and play them, like, to be honest. And I think like that's the big unfortunate thing, because we've seen post restriction BT15, you could have a wide variety of decks and have it feel good. Right now we have a not necessarily super wide variety of decks because it kind of was shrinking for a while. Um, but it doesn't feel good. Like, that's the big important distinction. is like the developments of the game and where the power creep took it just, in my perspective, ruins the game feel. Because now it's just combo hell. Like, I'm just going to sit there, watch you combo off for a turn, on turn 2 or 3, and then kill me. And I'm like, wow, that was a good use of my time. I appreciate what just happened here. Says very little people. I mean, like, people still enjoy the game, but it's better on a casual basis when the power level is way lower. Like, it's kind of like the whole Magic the Gathering, like, commander power thing, where people are like, oh, so what power level are you playing at? I'm playing at about a 4. What about you? Well, my deck's a 2. Can I really play with you? No. Go find a different table. Hey, is anyone playing a 2? No, no? Oh, well, I'll try anyway. I'm not gonna win, but I'll try. Like that's kind of what Digimon feels like in a.
Yeah, because honestly, at my locals, last week I was playing Galactic Mon because yeah, I figured if I'm gonna play any deck for store regionals, it's gonna be Galactic because it's black, and I kind of was playing him back in BT11, but literally during the second round, I was going against a brand new player that was like just kind of starting and getting their plant engine going. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of an a-hole here for this
Yeah,
because it's
as you
just like
proceed
they
to wipe their fields and then burn all of their
wipe their
security.
security.
Yeah.
Like I literally had to look at them and go, hey, so I'm going to tell you this right now. This is BS what I'm about to do, but this option card allows me to remove all your security till you're at 1. And I watch as that player's jaw hit the floor.
I mean, I'm starting to do locals gameplay, so I just bought a tripod and I'm gonna be uploading some matches from locals. Probably not every match from locals, but some of them. And I'm also gonna try to do that with the store regional I'm competing in, is get some gameplay footage in. And like you'll be able to like you'll visually see the power discrepancy between decks. Like between what was actually really good and competitive versus something a little bit more mundane. It's honestly comedically sad how night and day oppressive the good decks are to anything that's actually trying to play the game in a fair capacity. Like, I feel like a bully at times, because I know not all the time they're playing that way, and I do like it's probably a dick move on my part to apologize for that. I'm like, look, I'm sorry for playing this deck. I just wanted to get some practice in. So you're probably not gonna have fun here, and they're just like, whatever, dude. They're not like that exactly. They're just like, we get
They're
it.
not they're not mad at you, like because literally like that new player, like I kept apologizing, like, look, I'm sorry. If I could, I would have played something else for store. Like I wish I could have played a different deck against you and everything. But it's like, once you kind of start a store tournament, you got to play the deck you start with, from start to finish. But it's just like, they weren't mad at me. They were just like, I'm just surprised that, there's cards out there that do that.
Yeah, like I'm trying to find a deck for my friend, and I'm having a hard time because like a lot of the decks are either hyper complex or like borderline boring, and there's not that great of a middle ground that I could find for him. Granted, his limitations on what he was looking for out of a deck were a little bit skewed, so that is part of it. But I watch fighting game content a lot, and if anyone's familiar with like Maximilian Dude and Vars, more specifically Vars 3, um, it's to the point where Digimon decks, like correlating it to fighting games, is like, let's just say you pick a character, and Digimon decks, the way they play, makes it feel like you're not fighting the player behind the character who's controlling it. You're actually just fighting the character itself. It's like the deck autopilots, and that's not interesting. That's partially why maybe a person like Mario is just like, yeah, this game's just not as fun as it used to be because it lost a lot of its nuance due to the increased combo nature of it. And you could watch Brian Kibler's video on why Hearthstone isn't fun, and a lot of the same reasons that he's not enjoying Hearthstone correlates to why I'm not enjoying Digimon as much as I used to. Like, I want to enjoy the game, and I still think it has a lot of good stuff to offer, and it's one of the better designed foundations for a game out there. Which, and plus, I'm a huge fan of the IP. So, like, I'm not gonna leave it just because I'm not enjoying it at this particular moment. I'm just hoping that it gets better, so that way I can enjoy it more than what I do now. And like that's part of like my big qualms, and anyone who's been following my channel for a while knows I've kind of been a Demi Downer when it comes to that. But like I'm having one, a hard time articulating my feelings, and two, the power creep actually is just kind of out of control to where it's not the same game I fell in love with. So I think we didn't do necessarily the like the best job explaining it, but at least I hope like this kind of gets something
The
like
ball rolling.
some ball rolling, some gears turning. Um like I said, I'm really bad at articulating my feelings and my thoughts. So it does mean a lot that people are actually like listening and continue to listen. So any closing thoughts, Jay Stewart, as far as like the power creep of the game? I know you're obviously in a completely different mindset than I am when it comes to this.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm not burnt out, so to say, but at the same time, I'm not going to my locals every single week, so to say. Like, I'm not constantly trying to go out and like go to every single possible one. So I don't know, maybe if I'm just avoiding the burnout because I'm doing that small thing. And I can definitely say there is like, even though I'm not playing every week, I know there is like definitely something that, like we all kind of said, like there's definitely should have been a lot more cards that got hit on should have gotten hit on the last ban and restriction list based on previous reasons cards have gotten hit. But I mean, so right, I don't know how I want to say this. Like to me, it's just like I'm kind of waiting for Bandai, I guess, mostly to do something, I guess, so to say, especially if they want to try to push the sales of like BT21, because if nothing in BT1 is really going to be good, then there's no point of buying BT21, and you can just keep playing the old stuff. And I'm not saying we're going to see the same problem as we did with RB01 and what was the other set that came out that was really bad?
EX1.
BT15.
EX1 was awful. Like that set was a very damaging set as well. Maybe not RB1 level of damage, but like that one was a big wake up call for a lot of stores too.
Yeah, but like the one I'm thinking of, like the fact that RB01 and BT15, like there were two sets that were bad back to back, and like we kind of saw stores carry less product of Digimon because of it, and it kind of became a whole debacle of, oh well, why'd you do that when BT16 is such a good needed set and everything. So like,
Yeah, that was a whole hell in a handbasket.
yeah, I don't. It's like I hope Bandai will, kind of stay up to date with their whole bans and restriction list and start actually seriously taking notes about, hey, why are these cards still being used and everything? And like, well, maybe we shouldn't do that again.
I mean, you could even just look at the sale, like not necessarily the sales, like the current price of BT21 boxes. It's been going down and kind of tanking aggressively. And it's probably because as store regionals have been happening, data's been coming out, people have been reporting what they're having success with. Most of it, spoiler, is not the new stuff from BT21. You could go and look at a lot of the data that's out there and even what was reported here on this podcast. It's not BT21. So like again, just going over the
Yeah,
decks
it's
that
not
have
the
been
event.
topping, the only BT21 deck that really got a significant update is Galacti. Outside of that, Ancient Gurumon, BT18 deck, Gallantmon, EX8 deck, Sakuyamon, BT20 deck, Imperial Jamon, BT16 or 17 deck, Demon Lords, EX5 deck, or not EX5, EX6 deck, Red Purple Imperial, uh, BT20 deck, Lord or Royal Knights, BT20 deck, like Just just listing off what's currently reported as winning. Like,
Yeah, like none of it's like the new hero deck. It's not the new adventure deck. It's not the new link deck. Yeah, link deck.
yeah, Applemon. Like it's hard as a like even as a casual player, they like it's hard wanting to invest like a good amount of money into a like C or D tier deck that's coming out from the newest set. I mean, I guess the bar's not that low. It's probably like a solid B or C tier deck where it's just like it can kind of compete, but realistically, it doesn't. Um, Not unless RNG's in your favor, you find some really spicy tech, um, that actually is working. So like, that's the unfortunate reality of it, and it's just like that's where Bandai looks at that type of data and they're just like, okay, this didn't sell, so we're gonna have to power spike it, and that's then the next set will sell because it's power spiked. Like part of it is led by greed, part of it is led by design, where it's just like, how do we get players to move off of these old decks so that way we could push the sales of the new stuff so we can continue to make new stuff. And one, bans and restrictions need to happen to be able to do that. But if you look at the bans and restrictions, most of it's been newer cards, not older cards, because the newer cards, the power creep has been a little aggressive and egregious. But they're still banning some of the old cards because they don't fit in the current design philosophy of the game because they were designed from a completely different time period where the game wasn't expecting to be as hyperbolically fast as it is.
I mean, you can even take a look at Matashita from BT2. Like they when that card was designed, it was not intended that there's no way people could constantly replay it out or something. And then look what Purple Hybrid was doing. It was doing like a Matashita Purple Hybrid loop.
Yeah, and it's funny because the cards that do get banned, like they're mostly like actually older cards. Like it's always like BT7 or before. It like there's not that many cards from like BT8 through BT13 that are actually banned. Most of it is like the oldest shit or the newest shit. It's kind of hilarious on how paralyzed. I was gonna say paralyzing. God, polarizing. That's it. How polarizing the ban and restriction list is. So, but yeah, um, I think this is gonna be a good place to stop here. So tell us your thoughts about Digimon and its current state and the power creep down in the comments below. Once again, I want to thank everyone for listening and making it all the way to the end because, you know, you're the real hero. We're just two guys yapping on the internet. But the fact that you're listening and all listening to the end means that you're the real winner here. And we respect that. So thank you all again, and we will hopefully see you all in the next episode. Later.